Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the final bit of talking that we will be doing today. It's a triple episode, although this isn't a real episode. This is just going to be a short little let's talk about the things that went on. Unfortunately, this was an extreme challenge for me, and I had to be extremely aware at all times of what was going on, which makes it really hard to talk properly about what I'm doing, what I'm planning. It requires such a heightened state of alertness, because you're looking for so many things, and exploiting so many little holes. So, with Arusha, I can safely say that we have now captured the isolation zone. Just to point this out, shoot, what's the command? Debug, fuck war. Alright. To talk about what I mean by the isolation zone, I went over this in episode 1, but those of you that missed it, you'll notice that there is, in fact, a little area around Ethiopia. You can't travel through it. We are effectively isolated from the British, the Italians, and anybody else who would be our would-be conquerors. It's great. And... come on. Come on. There we are. 15 o'clock on the 16th of February, 1942. I actually submit this is a challenge to people. Beat my time. Conquer every bit of the isolation zone here. Every bit of it. Before I did. I want to see some other people try this, because this was a hard challenge by my standards. And I think it's fun. Now, a lot of people are asking, well, how the hell did you win? Well, we're going to talk about that. First, I want to show off the supply map mode. Ethiopia being isolated means that you cannot move supplies in or out of here by road. You just physically cannot. Now, on the other hand, with 4 levels of infrastructure, you can transport, 67.2 fuel per day. Supplies and fuel, rather. So, land routes are very useful in the amount of supplies that you can transfer. But here's the thing. Mombasa is a level 6 port. That means it can ship 36 units of supply. That's as much as a level 2 piece of infrastructure. And it's worse than this, which can only ship at 18. This also can only ship 6. This can ship 18, 18, and 18. So Mombasa was a key port. If you'll remember at the end of the last episode, there was a little blitz that I was just trying to do. I was just trying to get the ports, specifically these two. And the general want I had was to cut them off from Mombasa at all cost. 36 supplies and fuels a ton. To put this into perspective, my entire army, which is mostly made up of militia, uses 9.92, and my tanks use up 5.10 fuel. I'm effectively using roughly about 15 units of friggin' supplies. Basically, I could maybe supply my entire army off of one port here. Yeah, like, I could supply it off of that. You saw they had an army roughly 3 times my size, most of it being infantry and tanks, which consume a lot more supplies. Combined with, hopefully, Britain doing a few numbers on their convoys, basically, they would stand no chance without Mombasa. They had Berbera, which was 6 supplies. It wasn't major. Meh. I couldn't even supply my army off of that. And 18. Alright, you could supply something my size off that. Even those two together were nowhere near enough what they needed. They required Mombasa. It was needed for them. Since I had the northern region up here secure, the goal was more or less... I was going to lose that. I knew I was going to lose that. My sole hope was to cut Mombasa. And thankfully, they let me. I didn't even have to take Mombasa. Like, just taking these regions here and just making a line here is also acceptable. Anything that would prevent the transmission of supplies along the ground routes. The thing about Hearts of Iron you have to remember is, the second you are not playing in Europe, which you can see is pretty important. Like, even invading the Soviet Union, you start to get a bit careful because of how big your war-marked tank brigades are and how much supplies they consume. The second you step out of Europe, everywhere else, except Japan, I guess, and probably also North America. Yeah. Everywhere else, you have to be very cautious about how you approach some things. In particular, supplies. Especially if you happen to have a capital somewhere on another continent. You'll find it very tricky to transport enough supplies to maintain large armies. Now, I made some mistakes. I'm going to go over them. My first mistake was thinking I had enough IC that I could pull a couple tank brigades out. I got lucky in that I didn't have that big of an issue. I should have focused a bit more heavily on militia techs. I regret that. And I also should have gone for cavalry. Cavalry are interesting. They're a little more powerful than militia, and their supply consumption isn't too much higher. It's still lower than tanks. They're basically militia tanks. That's the best way to look at them. They have the higher maneuver, you see here. They have some suppression, always nice, I guess. But, you know, they're quicker to build, but at the same time as regular infantry. They take less manpower. They take less IC. And where is it? Well, they're not too bad, actually, overall on the attack. There's only 1 combat width compared to tanks, which is 2. And I feel like it would have been better for me to invest a little bit in cavalry as opposed to the light tanks. I really feel like that was a better call. Actually, the better call was just go with more militia. And artillery. I should have gone with artillery, too. Artillery is important because it has 0 combat width, and so it doesn't actually take up any frontage. Like, if you have a lot of artillery, you're in good shape. So, like I said, that was a huge mistake I made, and I would do that differently next time. But in the end, it still worked out for the best because the Italians left open a corridor for me to cut them off from Mombasa. Like, I actually think I shouldn't have even bothered to attack Mombasa. I should have just sat in Lamu and have them come at me over the river if they wanted to try and break the siege. Because everything else, you'll notice the second I take Mombasa, everything here just stalls. They were barely getting enough supplies in for their army on what they had. Seizing Mombasa cut them completely. They had no chance of moving forward. And that's what's important. You have to very much so, when you're not in Europe, watch your supply lines. And that's why, in particular for the Soviet Union region, we're going to talk about this, there's a certain thing you can do in Hearts of Iron called the infrastructure bombing, which destroys infrastructure. The only time, I actually find this to be pretty meh in use, but you'd have to look at the Soviet regions. Like, the second that the Germans are at Leningrad, if you start, you know, taking out Tlasin, or Alexandria, and so on, that is actually extremely painful for them. That is where they'll be able to move most of their supplies through. And, you know, around-the-clock infrastructure bombing is a great tactic for that. I mean, hell, take this out. Take this out. Boom, we've got this region isolated. Unfortunately, I generally find it doesn't work so well in most of actual Europe, because, oh well, you destroy one province, they're now actually just going to move the supplies around it. Takes a little longer to get to the front, but generally, that doesn't affect it too badly. So, that's the thing. But, yeah. So that's the thing about my little treatise on supplies and how the hell I won that. So, without further ado, I'd like to thank everybody for watching this series. I'd also like to announce that due to the mass response to this series, that everyone seemed to like it, I'm going to be doing a proper game of this, not Ethiopia. And that's going to be up on my channel in the coming week. So, hope you guys will enjoy that. Poor Germany. Like, this offensive is just stalled. Germany loses. Like, I don't think they'll manage to make it to any of the major cities. Darn. Ah, well, it happens. Gotta be careful. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, this has been your lovely host, Gilvin, signing off.